Summit 2021. This year, our summit is co-located with the Cloud Expo Europe. My name is Monique Calisti, and I'm the CEO of Martel Innovate that helped organizing this event. And it's my pleasure today to guide you throughout a very rich and dense agenda, as you will discover soon. Of course, it's very sad we cannot be all together in Frankfurt as we had planned, but no matter what, I hope you are all safe and that you can stay connected today and tomorrow actually for a 2 days dense of discussions about the evolution of cloud computing in Europe and what are the main priorities to shape the new strategy for the future. We will be with top experts, policymakers, practitioners, cloud providers, researchers, and we will explore how cloud technologies are the cornerstone to shape the next digital decade, to shape Europeans' digital future, gathering the best experiences across the research and innovation landscape. But before starting with our first plenary session, I would like to remind you of first housekeeping rules. Now you can see here, let me grab. So first of all, I wanted to remind you all sessions will be recorded and published on the event platform. You can post questions and comments live in the discussion chat of your session. We will try to make it as much interactive as we can, picking up questions from the audience and creating some lively debates. Also, please join the broader discussion that is ongoing across social media online by using the hashtag Horizon Cloud Summit and tagging the HCloud_project that is the one organizing the event. If you have any technical issue, possibly drop a message and questions in the chat for further help. Now, I introduced myself, but now it's time to introduce our first speakers. In particular, I would like to introduce Pierre Chastanet from the European Commission, head of the Cloud Unit, that will give us an introduction about what is the view of the European Commission, what is the vision for the European cloud community growth and future. Pierre, the floor is yours. Many thanks.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and many thanks for the invitation to the Horizon Cloud Summit this year. Really glad to be able to talk with you, albeit virtually. I'll try to give you a bit of an overview of the strategic approach that the European Commission is taking to cloud policies and cloud investment at European level. Next slide, please. Data is really at the center of this commission. There is really an explosion of the amount of data that is being generated in Europe. It's going to be multiplied by a factor 5 in just over 6-7 years period of time. And this is related to the digital transformation of all sectors of European industry and the public sector. And we want to capitalize on this digital transformation across the EU. We see a major shift as well in terms of how the data will be processed. There is increasingly demand from users to be more in control of their data, to have services that are more tailored to their needs, and to have data processed closer to where they are being generated. So rather at the edge, rather than in centralized capacity. It is essential for Europe to master those novel data infrastructures, those novel data services, if we want to be able to deploy advanced digital technologies like big data analytics, artificial intelligence, blockchain, etc., etc. Next slide, please. Europe has really all the capacities to take advantage of this digital transition. We try to elaborate the different elements of this in the European data strategy that was published at the beginning of 2020, and which articulates this dual transition between, on one end, stimulating data sharing across the European economy, notably in the different sectors of the economy, articulated around industrial ecosystem, industrial value chain. And conversely, this will stimulate demand for European cloud, European edge infrastructure and services. So one really fuels the other. If user industries have more trust in their data processing capacity, they will be more inclined to share data. And then the other way around, if they start sharing data, they will have more needs for European data infrastructure and services that meet certain needs. So on one end, we will use European investment programs such as the Digital Europe program to stimulate the development of a number of European data spaces. I will come back to this in a minute. And conversely, we are massively investing in the development of novel cloud and edge capacities at European level. This will be coordinated through the European Alliance for Industrial Data, Edge and Cloud. And we will use this other instrument called an IPCEI, Important Project of Common European Interest, to make a leap forward, so to jointly develop at European level the next generation of cloud and edge capacities. This is, of course, require a very close coordination with other existing initiatives. GAIX obviously come to mind. In particular, all the work that they are doing relating to reference architecture and consensus building on technical standards for interoperability. The Commission does not aim at duplicating or reinventing what a very large critical mass of industrial actors are working on through the GAIX initiative, but on the contrary, leverage that consensus building in GAIX in other Commission initiatives. Next slide, please. I said I will come back on this articulation between data spaces and European Cloud and Edge Federation. That's what these slides demonstrate. We want to invest in a number of common European data spaces, but we also want the private sector to invest in the development of a number of European data spaces. So not everything will be financed by the Commission, but the Commission will naturally intervene in those sectors that are traditionally regulated or that naturally fall in the public sector intervention area. We have a legislative framework to provide reassurance to industrial and public sector actors on how data can be shared in those data spaces. It's called the Data Governance Act. There was a major advance recently with European Parliament and European Council agreeing on the rules to frame common European data spaces in the Data Governance Act. On the supply side of cloud and edge capacities, we do not want to create a European hyperscaler. That's absolutely not the intention. On the contrary, we want to capitalize on the fact that data capacities in Europe are pretty much scattered all over Europe, and we have to play this to our advantage. So we will invest in the interconnection of these different capacities at infrastructure level and at service level as well. And then we should put an umbrella over it to be able to federate all these capacities in a way that will allow users to tap seamlessly into these capacities regardless of where they are located in the EU. In this way, it will enable to create a European cloud-to-edge computing continuum, ranging from high-performance computing down to super highly distributed edge and far edge data processing capacities. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yes. So in order to achieve the vision that I've just described, we will mobilize all investment instruments at our disposal. So the European program on one end, the member states and industry, of course, to co-invest with us. On the Commission side, we have learned from past experience, not working only on the research and innovation, but also start closing what was called the Valley of Death, and also investing in the deployment of critical digital technologies. So we will continue investing in research and innovation via the Horizon Europe program, but we will also invest in cross-border infrastructure deployment. So interconnecting cloud infrastructure across the EU, that's the CEF2 program, Connecting Europe Facility 2 program. And we will also invest in cross-border services deployment, notably smart middleware capacities to foster interoperability across the board. And this will be financed through the Digital Europe program. At national level, we will leverage the Resilience and Recovery Facility, the RRF. So all this money that the EU has injected at national level, 20% of which was earmarked for digital investment. A significant proportion of this is going to go to cloud and edge investment at national level, and most of it will go to finance the contribution of member states to the IPCEI. And finally, as mentioned, we count on co-investment with industry. All in all, this should lead to over 10 billion of investment at European level in the coming 5 to 7 years. Next slide, please. You can skip that. Next slide, please. This gives you a bit more detail on the different investment. We are, of course, capitalizing on what we have done in Horizon 2020. For some of you, it may sound like things that have been done already, but remember what I've just said about the closing the Valley of Death. You know, in the past, we were financing research and innovation project, and the next thing was doing another research and innovation project. Now, it's very important here to start looking at what has been achieved with Horizon 2020 and which of these project results can now be brought to large-scale deployment and use the Connecting Europe facility to use the Digital Europe program for this purpose. And there are plenty of excellent results in Horizon 2020 that can be scaled up at European level now. So don't stop at research and innovation, also look at the potential in terms of very broad deployment. Next slide, please. The cluster on Future Cloud has been essential for us to prepare the work program of the new digital program, Horizon, CEF2, and DEP. It's really representing for us a strategic roadmap for future investment, and we really encourage you to continue working in the Future Cloud cluster to continue fueling your reflection about the needs for the future across the life cycle of technology development. So from research and innovation to market. So please continue investing in the Future Cloud cluster. It's essential input for us. Next slide. I think the next slide showcases important result of the Future Cloud cluster. This is something that we are really factoring in our internal reflection, and of course reflecting this in work program. Next slide. Yes, you can move to the next one. Yes, thank you. Just a quick snapshot of the Horizon Europe calls that are currently open and that reflect the input that we received upstream, notably from the Future Cloud cluster, but also from other input interaction that we had with the constituency. I would like to specifically earmark the calls that are currently open on open source for cloud-based services and cognitive cloud. Next slide, please. I will come in the details for this. Yes, thank you. So on the Cognitive Cloud framework, we currently have a call that is open since the end of November, with call deadline at the beginning of April. So this is open on the Commission portal. Please have a look in the detail at the research and innovation action that are proposed. We really are aiming to create this computing continuum from cloud to the edge. So that's this segment of the cloud computing continuum, with the objective to prepare the ground for artificial intelligence deployment across that computing continuum. Next slide, please. So 50 million euros earmarked for that call. The other one, it corresponds to a different destination in Horizon Europe, and it's focusing on open source platform for cloud-based services. We see that there is a lack of development of European software development platform that is fit for cloud-based services, and that explains a lot of the move of developers to other type of platform. So we need to have a European-grown open source software development framework that is natively fit for cloud-based services. So the call is also open since end of November, 20 million euros earmarked for that call, and finishing at the beginning of April. So I'm wishing you a lot of luck for structuring your proposal for these different calls. We're looking forward to receiving your proposals. We continue, we have a need to continue engaging in the dialogue with you to fuel us with the ideas, with your needs for future work program, for Horizon Europe as well. But again, don't look at research innovation on its own. Start thinking for the entire life cycle of product and services. Also, the deployment is extremely important. It's an integral part of the new digital strategy. I will stop here. I'm wishing you a very successful Horizon Cloud Summit, and many thanks to Monique and her team for organizing this together with us. Many thanks, and have a great event. Thank you.
Have a good rest of the day. I know you have to run away. So I recommend people that have questions to drop them. We will address them offline since Pierre has to go. The slides will be made available via the Horizon Cloud portal. So you will have a chance to look in better details at what has been presented. Now, it is my pleasure to move forward with our program and introduce you to the next speaker, our keynote speaker this morning, Lars Nagel, that is the CEO of the International Data Spaces Association. Lars, I will let you introduce yourself in more details. It is my pleasure to move forward with our program and introduce you to the next speaker, our keynote speaker this morning, Lars Nagel, that is the CEO of the International Data Spaces Association. Lars, I will let you introduce yourself in more details. It is my pleasure to move forward with our program and introduce you to the next speaker, our
Thank you very much. Sorry, I had a double sound. Good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for the great occasion to share some thoughts on data spaces and, well, reflect a little bit more why they are so important for cloud business, and on the other hand side, why we do need all the endeavors and all the ventures around cloud, from Gaia X up to all the other initiatives which Pierre mentioned, to really make data spaces happen. And that is what I want to share with you this morning. So let's build data spaces. That should be at the core of what we are doing, because at the end, we need to build impact. So it's not only about technology and setting up some or assembling some cool technology. We really want to leave business impact. And therefore, we have to share data, and we have to see and make the proof why exchange of data, combining data sets, sticking data sets together, and co-creating value is of utmost importance to really get data economy running. And well, we have talked about that during the last years, but currently we are still witnessing convincing use cases, definitely, but they are very well focused. They are a few-to-few data exchange, data sharing scenarios. And now we are on the threshold to really move to real data spaces, many-to-many data sharing, M2N data connection. So really a lot of data endpoints, a lot of companies, a lot of players providing data, a lot of players consuming data. And that is what it's all about in data markets and, well, in data spaces. So that is at stake. And data spaces are, so to say, the magic sauce to make that happen. And I think we all have gained the insight that data spaces will be a game changer for data economy. 5 years ago, nobody really knew what data spaces are. Since 2019, we have we've read the name or the term data spaces in the European data strategy, and from then on, things really flourished. And well, why are data spaces such a cool idea? Well, because it is in the DNA of data spaces. So they are protected environments in which participants can freely share data. They can do so because they are adhering to clear rules that protect data sovereignty, ensure transparency and fairness. And on this base, we can create economic value. What is at core of this is data sovereignty, because unfortunately, most of the data is still not shared. There are a lot of studies out there, and we have to increase the number of data sets which are available to come up with all the cool smart services, with all the ideas in AI which we want to see happen, so that they benefit companies, but also the citizens and society as such. Therefore, we need to overcome this gap that companies, are hesitant to share data because they don't know what happens to the data. So once they open up the door and share data with an ecosystem, they are not sure what happens. So we have to overcome that. And data sovereignty is exactly the concept, the technology, the idea behind that to make it happen. In order to make data sovereignty happen, in order to make data spaces happen, we have a huge to-do list. And you know all of these terms and all of these work fields. So that is what all of you, all of us is working on, where the Commission tries to manage and put everything in place. So we have to work on trust. Trust is at the core, so identity management, certification to really state that components and runtime environments are fine. We have to work on security. We have to set up ecosystems of data, because at the end we have to talk about data as economic assets. We have to deliver standardized interoperability. Pierre has already mentioned it before. Sharing data is the one side, so we also have to add apps to the data so that we can do something with the data. And at the end, we need data markets so that we really can talk about valorization of data. So that is to do. We all know that. We are all working on that. What we do need at the end, what we have to assemble, what we have to work on together, where we have to create convergence, is a soft infrastructure for data spaces. And that is what Pierre has already mentioned. So the infrastructure for European data spaces, it will not be a monolith monolithic centralized IT infrastructure. It's a modern, it's a cool concept of totally interoperable implementations of data spaces from a holistic perspective. So we have to tackle a lot of challenges. So functional, technical, operational, legal aspects, business aspects, governance aspects. And at the end, we will have a soft infrastructure as we do have for mobile communication, right? So who of you knows how GSM works? But we all can take our mobile phone and move from one country to the other, roam, and call someone in Spain from Denmark. And that is what we need for data spaces. And that is the soft infrastructure, which we do not. And the core question which we have to overcome to answer, and what we have to provide, so all these data spaces and cloud guys, so us here on this conference, we have to come up with a soft infrastructure and tell all the companies which just want to use a data space, so data space as commons, right? So for them, a data space is just a technology to share more easy, more reliable, more trustworthy data, right? So, and the question is, do they share data or not? Do they plug in or not? And it's us to bring in the trust to data ecosystems so that any company can take really an informed decision. Okay, what happens if I share my data set, which is of high value for my company, maybe even essential? So if I share it via this infrastructure, I want to be sure that it follows absolutely my ideas, my rules, all the obligations which I have attached to the data set. And that is what we have to make sure. Well, I'm here with several hats. So my first hat is International Data Spaces Association, IDSA. So what do we bring to the table? So well, we bring this semantic layer of data exchange, how we can ensure trust on that layer. So we have a reference architecture, which is like a blueprint for data spaces with detailed specifications for the essential components to exchange data. We have a certification scheme to make the proof that components and runtime environments are really trustworthy. And we have an open source a project where we provide, together with our members and everyone out there, a portfolio of open source building blocks to build data spaces. One of the projects is the Eclipse Data Space Connector, which you probably know, which is used in Catena-X, for example. And we have a rule book which explains how all of this sticks together. Well, and at the end, any data space should follow some minimal interoperability mechanisms, because at the end, any data space must work in the same manner, so that we keep the call for interoperability. And so at the end, it's always a data provider, data consumer, and some services which we need so that this exchange or sharing of data may happen. And that is what we define on a semantic level in IDSA. That is what Gaia-X defines for the whole federation services on the cloud layer and edge layer in the Gaia-X Federation services, and where other also add components, for example, iShare for digital identities and a lot of others. And then we can use this soft infrastructure to build data spaces. And that is what has already happened. For example, there are, as mentioned at the very beginning, not too many data spaces really of a M2M data sharing scenario style, but the mobility data space from Germany, which is currently on the way to become a European one, is already built upon these principles. So from a functional blueprint, which I've just mentioned, has raised a big business ecosystem of more than 60 use cases with a lot of players in the field of mobility. And it's not only one data space, it is also like a mesh of data spaces, so an interconnected data spaces, because there are different data spaces following different rules within each of the data spaces, but they are interoperable. So we have also already made the proof that this can work. And now the next step is to make this a European one. And well, today we should talk about not only to have it in the mobility domain, but in any other domain which is of relevance for Europe. And that is what Pierre mentioned. So we have to agree on some common design principles so that every data space can be built upon this. So data sovereignty is clear. We need this level playing field for data sharing and exchange, which I've laid out. We need the soft infrastructure, and probably we need a certain governance to make that happen. And that is what we should all work on. From the technology point of view, we have to find consensus and work and foster convergence of all the building blocks. So from the technical functional perspective, also from the operational legal perspective. So you can see the building blocks for data spaces here, so that each data space, so this is at the very bottom at the picture, in the middle layer, we have data spaces, so which are all built the same, so that they are interoperable. And then at the very top, we can really create value. So companies, ecosystems can create value because we have made sure at the very bottom that the soft infrastructure is in place. What you can see here is part of the paper Design Principles for Data Spaces, which has been released at the beginning of this year. Please have a look at it. It is also part of a European endeavor, coordinating and support action. And we've already worked on that. So we have filled these boxes with live and more details. So how can we realize these building blocks? What are the technologies or the assets to be reused? And currently we are sitting together with several organizations, with Gaia-X, with BDVA, with Fireware Foundation, with My Data, with iShare, with the new governance, with others, to see, okay, we have to converge. How could it look like? And this is really a first glimpse to give you an idea how such a data spaces framework could look like, which can be reused for any data space. And what we will need to make reality, what Pierre Chastanet has shown us before, we need a common framework for data spaces. So we really have to foster coherence for European data infrastructure. So we have to combine all the groundwork which is already there. I've mentioned most of it. You can see the relevant documents here, and converge it to one common data spaces framework. And so that is here. So I'm not only here with my IDSA hat on, I'm also part of the Data Space Business Committee in Gaia-X. And we have agreed in September to form an alliance and to join our forces to make data spaces happen, to unleash the data economy. So BDVA, Fireware Foundation, Gaia-X, and IDSA will work together. We agree to speak with one voice to come up with this one framework for data spaces, so that a company in a certain domain does not have to answer the question, okay, do I use this approach or that approach? No, you can rely on the soft infrastructure because it's convergent, it's approved, and you can rely on it. And you can see here with the 4 organizations, we built the central stack for data spaces, for data-driven initiatives to make them happen. So having a look from Catena-X, for example, or the mobility data space or other sectoral initiatives, we make sure that this soft infrastructure for data spaces will be there and can be reused. And well, we make the link to all the other initiatives further down, especially on the hardware infrastructure, so that it's kind of a one-stop shop for the company. So what are the actions to take? I have to speed up a bit, I think. So we have in the alliance, in the Data Spaces Business Alliance with BDVA, Fireware, Gaia-X, and IDSA, we have crafted a work plan for the next 100 days, where we work on relevant activities to make happen what I've just explained. So first, we need this common data spaces framework based on common set of rules and design principles, relying on existing frameworks, for example, the Gaia architecture, the IDSA architecture. And in order to do so, we need to know, okay, with who can we talk? With who can we reflect that? Who can we consult and ask if all the change requests are matched. So therefore, we will work on a joint data spaces radar so that we will make visible what is happening out there and assess the maturity of the endeavors so that we can see more than Catena and Smart Connected Supplier Network and Mobility Data Space as really up and running, alive and kicking data spaces. We will work on open source components. Well, that is absolutely key and of no question. And we want to give support to all the data space endeavors. So any organization, any company, any network which wants to build a data space, get in touch with one of the 4 organizations so that we really can support the emergence of your data space. And well, the link to what Pierre has mentioned before. So with the Digital Euro program and also with the Horizon Euro program, but now with the Digital Euro program, there's a strong push to build data spaces in the different sectors. And we want to facilitate the building of consortia so that we really have the right people at the table, that we have knowledgeable people at the table, and that we will build data spaces which will flourish and which will be sustainable. And therefore, I would like to invite all of you for next week on a brokering event for data spaces. And there you can pitch your ideas, and we want to host this event to facilitate matchmaking so that you can form consortia in the Digital Euro program. And our intention is you should build data spaces so that we can really leave business impact in your domain, and we are there to help. And we want to be the one-stop shop for data spaces so that you can take care of your business and don't have to bother with technology beyond. Thank you very much. Looking forward to answer your questions here or via social media. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you, Lars, for this very dense and insightful presentation. The slides will be made available through the Horizon Cloud portal. There were a couple of questions in the chats. I've seen that some colleagues already answered. In particular, Federico Facca from the CTO of Martel Innovate has just pointed out to the paper that Lars mentioned that is already available for download. Now, let me pass. We are a little bit tight with timing, but please drop your questions, and in case there are any, we will try to address them and pass them on to the speakers. Now, what I would like to do is to introduce the next expert in our session, in our opening session, that is also a dear partner of us in the H-Cloud project, Marc Dietrich, that is a senior advisor at the EGI Foundation. Marc, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Monique. I just want to make sure I've got sound. And thank you for everyone joining us today. This is going to be a great presentation. I will move quickly through a lot of material because what we're going to do is share some of our work in H-Cloud and Horizon Cloud project with regard to the our strategy work for cloud computing in Europe. And my clicker is not, oh, there we go. So Pierre Chastanet provided a very rich framework for progress in the whole area of digital transformation, the digital decade, and digital transformation and a smooth, seamless cloud to edge continuum are key to many European Commission strategies. And he mentioned the European Strategy for Data. There's also many others that all where this figures very prominently. Now, how do we put these pieces together? As an example, one of the things that the Commission has done is they have identified a number of targets in their Digital Compass document, one of which is to bring all organizations across Europe, 75% of them, using the cloud in a substantial way. That's a fairly substantial jump from where things are. If you'll see on this chart, most organizations, the average organization for all of Europe was only just over 20%. So we're looking at a pretty big jump, a pretty big increase in the use of cloud. Some parts of Europe's economy by country or by large enterprises are doing a good job, are really adopting the cloud and taking advantage of this for their own businesses, but this is not 100%. So we have a lot of work to do, and Europe has a great transition itself that is needed to reach this target. Now, what does this look like in the cloud market itself? Many people talk about the role of non-European hyperscalers in the cloud, and to a very large degree, the components of the cloud market in Europe are not very different from what they are in other parts of the world. I show the UK and the US as some comparisons. And the legend on the right may be a little hard to read. You'll get the slides later, but the picture looks very similar. But there's one notable difference, which is in the infrastructure as a service sector, which is kind of what everybody thinks about when they are talking about the cloud. In Europe, it's very concentrated, and it's very concentrated with non-EU players. So this is an important factor in the way we think about how cloud will evolve in the future. Now, we've already talked about how there can be great growth in cloud usage by organizations, and in fact, intensity of the use of public cloud is in Europe, in the EU 27, is significantly reduced compared to US and even UK. So there's a great opportunity from just a dollar or euro standpoint for this usage to increase. But what will this do? My clicker didn't work. There we go. What will this look like? And I think we expect not an increase in cloud per se, but an increase in the edge. And Pierre Chastanet talked about this in some detail. IDC, our partner in this project, has said that in a few years, 73% of data will be generated outside of the core, namely in the edge. We expect to see, based on the digital decade targets, as well as a roadmap put together by the European Alliance for Industrial Cloud, Data and Edge, thousands of new edge nodes to be deployed across Europe, between 6 and 10,000, depending on which report you want to look at. But there's clearly a need for a huge growth in this infrastructure. So why are we doing all this? All of these things support digital transformation, because digital transformation is the thing that is going to change the business performance, the profitability, and the quality of life for EU citizens. So they are not so much concerned about the cloud. They're not so much concerned about the edge. These are technical details. What they want is a better life, lower carbon emissions, increased profitability, greater quality of life. How does this get accomplished? And digital transformation is the general phrase we use for this. And it comes in a lot of different forms. So we want to figure out how to kind of simplify it. And we've in hCloud, we've come up with a basic approach. First, there is data awareness. We need to be able to get access to various kinds of data, not only inside the organizations, but also outside through the edge, as well as from partners. Then we need to do useful things with that data through a data-driven innovation process. We combine that with an underlying capability for stronger EU-based IT services. And even underneath this, another layer of foundational elements, such as skills and security. So what are the components? What are the important pieces to our stakeholders, not only in the cloud computing business, but also in the adopting organization? So we assembled some representatives of the community that are affected by this, not only cloud industry representatives, but also SMEs, who are a big part of this adoption problem. They are the ones furthest back in adoption of cloud, as well as technical experts and researchers who are going to frame the future of the cloud and the future of these technologies. And they prioritize the different layers in the way I've shown with the stars, namely data-driven innovation is the most important. And then we have to work both on the data awareness, the data accessibility, as well as a stronger EU IT services market. We can drill down into this, if my clicker will work. There we go. So we look at data awareness and we see there are actually three outcomes that we need to make this possible, and they cover the three areas. One is how to best use internally available data in an organization. So how do we deal with data privacy, data sovereignty, personal data protection? Then we have to have a way to get data in from the edge, out from the outside into our data-driven innovation process. So how are we going to access data that's sitting at the edge? And lastly, how are we going to share data? And here Lars Nagel provided a nice presentation describing the pioneering work of IDSA in making data spaces possible. But these are all going to be important. In fact, they're about the same level of importance across our stakeholder group. Moving to the next layer, where we're performing data-driven innovation, how do we do this? Well, a big piece of that is adopting cloud-style technologies and technology stacks, building skills in our organizations to enable this, creating a number of meeting a number of requirements for performance, reliability, security, and privacy. How do we navigate the building versus buying process in an organization? And lastly, how do we deal with our legacy applications? And again, reaching out to our community. There we go. They prioritize that adoption of cloud-style technologies. And when I say cloud-style, we're saying it doesn't have to be in the cloud. It could be on-premise. And many organizations already have significant on-premise capabilities, and they will continue to do so for a lot of very good reasons. But using cloud-style technologies allows them to be flexible and to move quickly. So this is very important. Other key areas are skills, and then the ability to deliver the kind of performance, reliability, security, and privacy that are necessary in this environment. And lastly, and this is particularly an issue for for SMEs. They're very concerned about how to deal with their legacy applications. So we cannot forget this. How do we move from the old to the new? So moving to the next layer, which is what does our IT services market in the EU look like? And this is a lot of the classic bubbles you might expect. We've got the players, the non-EU hyperscaler players. We also have EU-based providers, not only in infrastructure as a service and platform as a service providers, but also software, the possibility of what I was just mentioning, private cloud and on-premise deployment. And then how do we put the pieces together? Hybrid and multi-cloud, as well as federation mechanisms. And lastly, how do we get to the edge? What is that going to look like technically? So what do our stakeholders say? They really, excuse me, they really prioritize the edge and that hybrid multi-cloud picture. They need the tools that allow workloads, job workloads, data to flow smoothly across different cloud providers and into the edge and back. So this is going to be critical. And I will say that it's very nice to see in the European Commission's programs, they are addressing this, but we're going to talk more about how this can be strengthened. So our final layer, our foundational layer, these are things that maybe it's not a foundation, it's more like an overarching piece of this, which is that we need security, we need access to skills, we need to have mechanisms that allow for a carbon neutral digital transformation. So this is not just about efficient data centers. It's about efficient software. It's about efficient hardware. It's about efficient data centers, yes, but it's also efficient networking and power sources. So how do we put all those pieces together into an efficient carbon neutral capability? And lastly, there's a need for clearly for additional fundamental research to support all of these activities. So what does our community say about the importance? Well, they really honed in on skills. And we saw this again under data-driven, the data-driven innovation layer, where skills within organizations are important, but skills across the entire economy are going to be important to enable this digital transformation, to realize the benefits that everyone is hoping for. The group also highlighted intrinsic security as well as carbon neutral digital transformation. SMEs were particularly focused on carbon neutrality. So that's good to see, and we're going to have to talk more about that because the focus of the Commission is both a digital transformation, but also a carbon, an environmentally friendly transformation. So let's put the pieces together. You'll get this in the slides. I know it's a bit of an eye chart right now, but I wanted to collect everything together. And within this, highlight the top items in the different areas. So at the data-driven level, we see adopting cloud-style technology and technology stacks. And then within the stronger EU cloud or IT services market, we see the emerging edge ecosystem and hybrid and multi-cloud capabilities. And finally, at the foundational level, we need the skills capabilities across the entire ecosystem. So these are all very important to realizing the vision, realizing the benefits that are projected from digital transformation, which are literally trillions of euros of benefit every year. I just clicked. And that is the end of my presentation, and I hope there are a few minutes that we can cover some questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. Lots of information, and I think I've seen quite a few chats. In the chat, I've seen quite a few messages. So some of them are asking, okay, thanks, Mark. When you say cloud style, I guess you're talking about open hybrid multi-cloud. Can you clarify, Mark?
I think the important thing about cloud style, the focus is to, one of the beauties of using the cloud is it changes the way people build their applications. So you do have to do some re-engineering. But when you do that, it gives you an ability to run your applications in the public cloud or on a cloud style hardware stack inside your own data center. And then you can make your own decisions about what kind of security and privacy you need, what kind of carbon neutrality you can achieve. You can be autonomous and sovereign about those decisions because you have the flexibility of moving your workloads where they can be. They can be different providers, they can be your own facilities, etc. So that's what we want to achieve. And it's a combination of virtualization as well as using some of the new software programming techniques that you see that are commonly seen in the cloud, but increasingly need to be adopted in our corporate data centers and corporate IT environments.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. I saw also some other comments from Giovanni about this. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, Mark, is the work that you have been presenting is the outcome of an ongoing project, Horizon 2020 project. When it's going to be the next release for let's say road mapping and strategy positioning aspects that the project will provide?
Thank you. That's a great point, Monique. We've been working on this for some while in the Horizon Cloud H Cloud project. There is a draft of this new white paper, which is our deliverable D3.1. and we'll be releasing this to the public on our hCloud portal very soon, probably within a week or so. And we're very interested in getting broad feedback from the community on our specific points. We have done quite a lot of consultation already. We have a little bit of course correction and refinement that we need to incorporate. But in general, our experts and our advisory board has been very supportive of the direction we've taken and the conclusions that we have drawn. So we look forward to sharing it broadly, and we look forward to wider sets of feedback.
Absolutely. So I think, let me check again if there are other questions, other observations. I see a couple of others that have been answered. Meanwhile, Lars has also shared, and here I would like also to remind you all about the the brokering event for European data spaces that will take place on the 16th of December from 9 to 1:30 Central European Time. Now, we are about to close this session. There will be a break between now and our next plenary. So we will resume at 10:50 with a high-profile panel focusing on building European digital autonomy in the computing continuum. And here we have a quite rich panel of experts. We have Alexandra Haas, Head of IT Solution at Swisscom. We have Alban Schmutz, SVP Public Affairs of OVH Cloud, Chairman of CISP, representatives and co-founder of Gaia X, and Deputy and Interim CTO. We have Klaus Otradovec, VP Global Service Delivery of Atos. We have Maria Barosch Weiss, VP Research Digital Ecosystem at Ionos in Germany. And then we have Gerd Martelink, Links, business development and project management, threefold tech. So as you can see, a very rich panel. Please stay with us, and we will be happy to discover more about the vision for autonomy in the computing continuum for Europe. Thanks a lot, and talk to you soon. Bye.